Hello, I'm SeungWon Seo, a researcher from the IIIXR lab. Today, I'd like to introduce a paper titled SketchAgent Language-Driven Sequential Sketch Generation. Let me first introduce the background of this study. Sketching is an important tool for externalizing ideas, exploring concepts quickly, and communicating visually. It is used across many domains in architecture science, education, and even everyday communication. For example, on the top left you see an architecture sketch by Frank Gehry, and below that Alexander Bell's drawing when inventing the telephone. On the top right is a child drawing, and at the bottom right, a basketball strategy diagram. As this example shows, sketching is used not only by experts but also by children across a wide range of contexts. This paper starts from that observation. While recent advances in AI-based generative model have enabled the production of high-quality output, it remains challenging to capture and reproduce the human sketching process itself. Moreover, there is a growing possibility of building on this process to enable collaborative sketching between human and AI, which is the starting point of this research. Now, let's move onto the limitation of previous work. First, there is a dataset constraint. Large-scale sketch datasets such as QuickDraw do exist, but they cover only limited categories. As a result, generalization becomes very weak once we go beyond those predefined classes. Second, there is a lack of human-like qualities. Recent image generation model can produce sketch-like output, but they often fail to capture the subtle irregularities and spontaneous qualities that are characteristic of human sketches. If you look at the example below, DALL-E 3 on the left and LLM-based SVG output in the middle and a human sketch on the right. You can see that while AI model produce structured shape, they miss the natural traces and spontaneity that human sketches inherently have. Now, let me explain the research goal of this paper. The aim is to enable an off-the-shelf pre-trained multimodal LLM to draw sketches directly from natural language instructions. Importantly, this does not require any fine-tuning or retraining. Everything is achieved fully through prompting and the design of the sketching representation. As you can see in the figure, the system is designed to support three main capabilities. On the left, text condition sequential generation, where the model produces sketches such as a butterfly, the Taj Mahal, or a circulate diagram from texture prompt. In the middle, human agent collaborative sketching, where a person and the agent take turns adding stroke on the same canvas. And on the right, chat-based sketch editing, where sketches can be interactively modified based on dialogue, for example, asking the model to draw a robot as a paintbrush or place the robot on the canvas. Together, these goals highlight how the system moved beyond just generating a final image and instead focused on the sketching process, interaction, and collaboration. This slide introduced the input to SketchAgent. The system takes three main inputs. First, the system prompt, which defines the sketching language and introduces the number grid canvas. Second, the user prompt, which specifies the task, for example, draw a shark. And third, the canvas itself, which is a 50 by 50 grid on which the model can place stroke. These three inputs provide the foundation for how the model understands the task and how it can represent the drawing process. Once the inputs are given, the model outputs a structured plan. In the thinking section, the model describes the overall strategy for sketching, and in the stroke section, it specifies stroke sequence with coordinate, time value, and semantic ID. This sequence of coordinates are then processed and smoothed into Bezier curves, which are rendered on the canvas. Importantly, the canvas is persistent, meaning it can be reused later for further edit or even for collaborative sketching between a human and the agent. In this way, the system not only generates stroke but also preserves the process for continued interaction. Multimodal LLM often struggle with spatial reasoning when working directly with low pixel coordinate. For example, as shown in the figure on the left, if the model is simply told to draw a line between number points, it may not behave as intended. To address this, SketchAgent introduced a 50 by 50 numbered grid. Each cell is labeled in the format X sharp, Y sharp, which make coordinate referencing much clearer. This grid-based abstraction allows for explicit referencing instead of low pixel value, strengthens the model's spatial reasoning capability, and ultimately improves the controllability of the generated sketches. A sketch is defined as an ordered sequence of strokes. Each stroke consists of a series of coordinates along with timing value or t value. Traditional approaches often use polyline or low control point, but these tend to be unnatural or difficult to control. Instead, SketchAgent treats the coordinate as sample point along a curve. These points are then fitted with a smooth cubic Bezier curve using least square optimization. If the fitting error is large, the curve is recursively split and refitted. This process produces strokes that look much more natural and human-like, closely resembling the way people actually draw. A Bezier curve is a parametric curve commonly used in vector graphics and sketch rendering. It is defined by 4 points, a start point P0, an end point P3, and two control points P1 and P2, which determine the curvature of the line. Now, why does SketchAgent use Bezier curve? First, they produce more natural looking stroke compared to polyline. Second, they capture the fluidity and irregularity that are characteristic of human sketches. And third, they allow sampled grid coordinate to be fitted into smooth, continuous curve. If you look at the comparison below, you can see that stroke rendered with Bezier curve look much closer to human sketches than those generated with polyline or low control point. The system relies on two main tags. First, the thinking tag, where the model outlines a high-level plan describing the order, composition, and intended placement of different parts of the sketch. Second, the stroke tag, which contains the actual sequence of coordinates along with semantic IDs that label each stroke. For example, one stroke might be labeled as the dorsal fin. To further enhance reasoning, the system employed two techniques. The first is chain of thought, which prompts the model to reason step by step when planning the sketch. The second is in-context learning, which introduces the sketching language through example, ensuring that the model output remains parsable and consistent. On the right side, you can see an example output, showing how the model used thinking and stroke to generate both the planning text and the coordinate-based representation of the sketch. The first evaluation focused on text condition sketching. For this experiment, they used the quick draw dataset, which consists of a large collection of sketch images. Specifically, they sampled 500 sketches from each of 50 categories. As evaluation metric, they adopt clip-based recognition accuracy. The experiment was conducted by running SketchAgent with multiple LLM backbone. The results show that Prod 3.5 Sonnet achieved the best recognition performance. More importantly, SketchAgent generates sketch exhibit a similar pattern to human sketches. As strokes accumulate, the clip score gradually increases, which reflects progressively recognizability. On the left, you can see the comparison table across different models, and on the right are example sketches produced by SketchAgent. As you can see, the system is capable of handling a wide range of concepts, from simple objects to complex scientific dialogue and landmark. The second evaluation is sequential sketching. Here, the author compares SketchAgent against existing methods. First, SVG Dreamer requires around 1.6 hours to generate a single sketch, and it produces only a final result without any meaningful intermediate step, which make it hard to interpret the process. On the other hand, SketchRNN is very fast, about 4 seconds, but it is strictly limited to predefined categories such as those in the quick-draw dataset, making it difficult to handle novel concepts. In contrast, SketchAgent takes about 20 seconds on average and generates sketch stroke by stroke, with each stroke carrying semantic meaning. Interestingly, this is comparable to humans who also take about 20 seconds on average to complete a sketch. As a result, SketchAgent strikes a balance between efficiency and interpretability, producing natural, incremental sketches at a speed similar to human. On the right, you can see example of output, where SketchAgent develops sketches progressively in a way that closely resembles human sketching. The third evaluation focused on human-agent collaborative sketching. The study involves 30 participants across 8 categories and compared two modes, one where participants sketch alone and another where humans and the agent took turns drawing. The results show that collaborative sketches nearly match the quality of human solo sketches and clearly outperform the agent alone. Moreover, partial analysis revealed that when only the agent stroke or only the human stroke were considered, recognition accuracy dropped significantly. This indicates that both human and agent must contribute meaningfully to achieve high-quality sketches. On the left, you can see an example of the collaborative sketching interface, and on the right, a chart summarizes the quantitative result on the user study. The fourth evaluation focused on chat-based editing. In this experiment, the setup included 3 domains: outdoor, indoor, and animal, with 3 objects each. Editing prompt specified either spatial relations such as left of or on top of, or semantic attachments such as add glasses to the cat. A total of 54 edited sketches were produced. The results show high performance. Overall editing accuracy was 92%. For example, explicit spatial relation, the accuracy reached 94%. For inferred semantic relation, the system achieved 88%, which is still very strong given the complexity of inference. On the right, you can see example of the editing task: placing a tree next to a building, adding a lamp on top of a nightstand, or attaching accessory like glasses and a hat to a cat. This example demonstrates that SketchAgent can follow both explicit and implicit instruction, successfully performing interactive and context-aware editing. Finally, let us discuss the limitation and future direction of this work. First, there are vision limitations. Since the LLM prior are primarily optimized for text rather than visual representation, the generated sketch may sometimes appear abstract or even unrecognizable. Second, the system struggles with human figure, especially when it comes to complex body structure or fine detail. Third, it performs poorly on letter and number, as seen in example where text or mathematical symbol are not rendered accurately. At the bottom of the slide, you can see some example. On the left, sketch like cow or unicorn appear distorted and unrecognizable. In the middle, human figures such as Frida Kahlo or Michael Jordan lack proper form. On the right, letters and numbers such as the Coca-Cola logo or the Pythagoras theorem are not reproduced correctly. This limitation suggests interesting direction for future work, such as improving visual prior, incorporating spatial training or for human figure, and integrated symbolic representation for letters and numbers. To wrap up, let me briefly summarize the key contribution of this work. SketchAgent introduced a novel framework for language-driven sequential sketch generation. It leveraged multimodal LLM to generate sketch directly from natural language prompt without requiring fine-tuning. Through its sketching language, grid-based canvas, and Bezier curve representation, it enabled interpretable, human-like, and collaborative sketching. Of course, there are limitations, such as handling complex human figure, letters, and number, but this also points through toward promising future direction. In conclusion, this research highlights the potential of LLM not only to generate visual output, but also to capture the process of sketching, making them valuable partner in creative and educational settings. Thank you very much for your attention.